Welcome back, everybody. Today, this is going to be a great video, right? Because publishers sometimes are a little bit naughty. Now, maybe they're naughty because they're kind of bad, or maybe they just make a mistake and they have a plan where the business bigwigs think, oh, cool, we'll sell this season pass, but the developers are internally screaming, thinking, guys, we can't actually do that. The problem, though, is that means that customers, we get burned. And guess who also gets burned? Big Mr. Gabe. Because if you're running Steam and via incompetence or malice, your devs and publishers are messing on your customers, well, guess what? Now that's your problem. So this is very much a Steam consumer protection story, and it's one that is very Valve, because they've not went and hired a small army, right, of enforcers who are going to be patrolling Steam. No. Valve are a games design company, right? Now, the thing is, Steam, the actual platform, well, it's game designed. They want to incentivize behaviors that are in their best interest. And that means, yeah, things that mean that customers feel comfortable purchasing, but it also means developers and publishers acting right. So let's get into this. Today's story is all about selling an idea, selling a promise of future content and how it goes wrong. What's cool though, right, is the last few times we've covered Steam stories, especially policy ones, it's Valve being forced by some sort of outside influence. As an example, there were the terms of service changes, which basically were to try to comply with a Californian law. There was all of the stuff with the big class action lawsuits, and that was all Valve responding to external stuff. But here, this is Valve designing their own game, changing the rules, and it's all about the battle passes. Now, this was first spotted by Paweł Janik, who is the Steam DB guy, who does awesome work over there. So what they've done is they've changed their policies on how season passes work. And for the sake of simplicity, so that we all understand what Valve actually means, here is how Valve defines them. A pack of current and future content, brackets DLC, that customers can buy with a single purchase. So what's of note here is that battle passes, where you've got to unlock rewards through gameplay and like individual DLCs, those don't actually count here. What counts is when you buy a season pass, right? A whole package of things that is purchased before all those things release. And what's really cool is that we have got the full policy document, all of Valve's demands and requirements that developers and publishers have got to meet. And on face value, this absolutely looks like a humongous win for consumer rights. But as always, it gets far more interesting when we dive into the details, and that's possible because of today's sponsor, who keep me protected online. So here's the deal. Data brokers exist. They harvest our data any way that they can, and then they sell it. And that means we get robocalls, we get spam, and even worse, security vulnerabilities, especially the likes of social engineering. And when big corporate data leaks happen, as they often do, that data often ends up with the brokers. And that's where Incogni.com/Bellular News is a superpower, and it is so simple. We've actually got the legal right to have our data taken down. But that takes hours, and there's nothing stopping that data from being recollected. So what Incogni does is it scans the brokers, it automatically sends takedown requests, it adds you to suppression lists, and best of all, it constantly rescans to keep your data down. So here's my Incogni dashboard. You can see 114 sent, 8 in progress, 106 completed, and I'm on 21 suppression lists. And that means those brokers will not recollect my info. Now you can add up to 3 emails and home addresses as well, and the upshot is simple. Your data not being spread around without your knowledge or your consent. And I've actually not had a single robocall since I started with them. Incogni means you can actually benefit from the laws that actually exist to protect you but are normally completely unusable. And you can get 60% off an annual plan at Incogni.com/Bellular News. Let's kick things off with a customer perspective here. So Valve have codified how these products should appear on the Steam platform, sort of in the same way as Advanced Access, where Advanced Access was a thing, it was a gray area, and then Valve said, hang on a second, we should actually have a clear label and a clear system so that people know what's going on. So from now on, before the purchase of a season pass, products must clearly detail these things. A complete list of all DLC included in the pass, so a listing for each of the 4 DLCs that are included. There must be a basic description of the content included in each pass. Valve says, and by the way, I'm reading their policy document here. For example, the first content release might be the Glitterlands expansion, new area to explore, 2 new weapons, and new enemies. Valve's document goes on to say it's not required for DLC to have a final name at the launch of the season pass. They say that information about the content in the DLC doesn't need to be detailed, so you can just say as a developer, new weapons, or 2 new weapons, or new zone. That is acceptable. You don't have to list the specific, like, itemized things. Now, they also say, and this is where it gets big, expected release date for each DLC. quarter and year, i.e. January to March 2025, or season/year is acceptable. Of course, a date that's more precise is also fine. As an example, just any specific date in the year. And then there's a bit that I think is huge, right? A product must have at least one of its constituent DLCs actually released whenever it is offered. So that means that a season pass cannot be sold in such a way that if you buy the season pass, that's it. Right, there's no content right now. All that you've done is pre-ordered a bunch of future DLCs. That's actually not going to be allowed. Now, that being said, pre-orders of a deluxe edition of a game do get their own specific carving out in the rules. So obviously Valve aren't going to publishers and saying, hey guys, no more deluxe editions, because that would lose all of the money, right? So we'll have to treat that as a separate thing, but there's an other rule that is massive for us as gamers, as customers. Steam are codifying that if any listed DLC is cancelled, Valve will mandate refunds for the comparative value of the cancelled DLC to customers. Now, this is really good because look, generally, there would be some form of refund if a plan changed substantially. But the thing that actually matters is, can you trust that refund? Is it backed up by Valve's own rules? Here, it is going to be backed up by those rules, and that matters. Now what we can do is take a look at some recent video games to see who passes these rules and who fails. The devil is always in the details. So, Star Wars Outlaws just came out, and it does actually pass. The reason why is they have clear descriptions of the expected dates, there are clear expectations for the content, and there's a full list of everything that you get. Then we've got Space Marine 2. It also passes the new test. Again, it's got all of the detail, even though they are just describing the cosmetic pack contents in generic terms. But then we've got Tekken 8. It actually fails the test. It violates Valve's rules. Now, Tekken 8 came under a hell of a lot of criticism from fans because of what is actually in its season pass. Now, actually, that's not why they failed the test here. Obviously, you're allowed to sell a season pass that's shit as long as it complies with the rules, but what they don't comply with is that while there is detail of the content available that fits Valve standards, there's no time frame, right? No time frame for delivery, and Valve are not letting developers sell undated promises in their store anymore. Then we've got Stalker 2, which sadly fails on all counts here, actually. The only thing that they describe whenever you purchase the Ultimate Edition is, quote, Season Pass guaranteeing 2 additional expansions and any future DLC. Now, of course, detail-wise, Steam has left enough slack here so that as long as each DLC is labeled with new weapons, new enemies, new map, that would be acceptable. And that does mean that most developers are likely going to be fine on that front. And for the developers of Stalker 2, well, they basically just need to get their ducks in the row so that they are in compliance with this. Of course, I'll definitely say, on a personal level, I mean, I know that Stalker 2 has came out, it's had performance issues and all of that, but my god, like, very few games are developed in the, broader environment that Stalker 2 was developed in, so I'm absolutely going to cut those guys some slack. I mean, I think it's only fair. So obviously, in the topic of release dates, there's a reason why most announcements have got the legalese of, quote, dates subject to change, right, in the small print. So Valve are not going to be completely ruthless with developers here. They are giving developers flexibility to allow for delays and development problems because, well, Valve are also game developers. I'm pretty sure they understand that keeping to a development timetable is hard. They run in Valve time, so they take that into account, but they do have rules and punishment. So here it is. If developers cannot make the 3-month window that they set for their DLC, they are allowed to move that DLC to the next 3-month window. But if it's anything more than that, they can't do it in the Steam backend. They can't click a button. They need to negotiate it with Valve, right? So they basically need to get a meeting with the principal and explain themselves. And if that DLC is delayed past the 3-month point, even if no customer has complained to them, then Valve will actually consider action. And of course, that is action that, will hurt the developer's bottom line. That means that there are clear consequences. Valve's framing to developers and publishers is clear. A season pass is a commitment to future releases, and it's one that they want as a contract. Here's a quote. If you aren't ready to clearly communicate about the content included in each DLC and when each DLC will be ready for launch, you shouldn't offer a season pass on Steam. So if a 6-month window for release isn't enough, Valve will actually consider that to be a breach of contract between developers, Valve, and customers, and as a punishment, they will actually take action. Here are Valve's punishments. The season pass may be removed from sale. They also say all unreleased content may be refunded, or customers may get the option of a refund for the whole pass. And the same will actually apply if the season pass hasn't released for 1 year as well. And the ultimate point here is that customers will not lose out because a developer cannot meet their promises. Of course, promises the developer has sold to a customer. That to a lot of developers will sting. It will feel harsh, but you know what? This industry has been damaged so much by commitments to players just being fast and loose and not being respected. And that's why games discussion and culture is such a flippin' mess these days. So let's talk about games that will fail this criteria. Redfall! Yeah, Redfall, remember that? That's a recent example where, because Microsoft shut down the development studio, there was simply no plan to make the Season Pass DLC. Now, obviously, Microsoft did offer refunds there, but it was initially unclear if that would be the case, as Microsoft framed that a make-good offer was being worked on, which, in that case, it's gotta be money, or I'm saying no. Now then, there's 10 years ago, Assassin's Creed Unity. That saw Ubisoft have their release pass removed, right? Removed from sale because of the game's launch issues, which at the very least were pretty damn funny to watch. Now in that case, Ubisoft still did commit to releasing their DLC regardless, with all of the Season Pass owners getting that as a part of their purchase. Plus, everybody in the community actually got the first DLC, and then Season Pass holders got a free Ubisoft game to make up the cost. So that was them trying to navigate the situation, but obviously here, with Valve, well, a developer doesn't just get to say, take this instead. No, it's got to be what you promised, or else Gabe's giving people their money back. And speaking of development shit shows, we gotta talk about City Skylines 2. City Skylines 2's expansion pass, Waterfronts, completely meets all the criteria for listing a Season Pass product on Steam, right? They've got clear descriptions of what the content is, actually far more detail than is even required, and they do have clearly marked dates for, the initial sale of it. As an example, right, the Bridges and Ports DLC was marked as releasing in Q2 of 2024. However, the astute among you may notice that it's actually Q4 of 2024 right now, and that expansion has not released. In fact, in February, to ensure wider game stability, it was updated to have a release window of Q2 2025, which I will say is what that developer should have done. Because look, if your foundations are absolutely shot through, destroyed, what business have you got building something on it? No, you got to fix the real problem first. But you can't have it both ways. And so in doing that, you should hand people their money back with a plan to earn it back later. And this actually means that what they've done in City Skylines 2 would land squarely within Steam's policy of being more than 12 months since the intended release date if it doesn't hit by then. Now, the reasons why the DLC is delayed is obviously that stuff that we've covered in a lot of detail here, and I think broadly everyone watching this video understands they've got to fix the real problem first. I mean, don't sell people stuff when the thing they've already got is shit. But the problem of a season pass is that many people have already paid for that DLC. And so if we take a look at Valve's rules, guess what? You gotta give some of that money back. That's gonna sting, but guess what? It is goddamn right. And because Valve are the biggest marketplace in PC gaming, well, they are setting the terms of the market. They are drawing a red line about what is acceptable. A lot of developers are going to, I think, look at this and say, right, in spirit, as a developer of games, a player of games, this is really good. But they will then think about the currently broken funding model of video games, which is completely biased towards publishers, is completely biased against developers, and they will be fearful. And in their fear, they may lash out a bit, right? They may be worried because it's their livelihood. But bad things have to stop, and a company that cannot keep to its promises should go under. At the top of this video, I highlighted that other changes Valve made have very much been responding to things. I mean, hell, even take a look at Steam's industry-leading refund policy. That happened because of Australia. So I suppose for once in video games, thanks Australia. Because if you're an Australian gamer, there was a long time where if you wanted an 18 rated game, the government weren't going to let you have it. But on reflection, what I said at the start of this video isn't actually right. There is no outside force from a big authority. No government saying, no senator getting up in, the Senate and saying, season passes are messing up gamers. That's not happening. While it's not coming from an authority, Valve absolutely are motivated by an external force. And that external force is bad behavior. And do you know what matters here? It's not a slap in the wrist. It's a clear financial punishment. I don't know if this turn of phrase exists in your country, but, you know, we would over here in Northern Ireland call someone a bit of a chancer, you know, if they were sort of wheeling and dealing, you know, being a wee bit cheeky. Publishers have often been like that. They've been planning to sell you something and taking the money early. And they don't always deliver, or it's not always the spec. That's damaged the hobby that we love, and it has normalized bad behavior, such that soon people will just expect shit. They will expect to be treated badly. That has got to end, and the only way to make it end is clear financial punishment. This will lose devs money, it will lose publishers money, and I am happy about that, actually. I think it is good. And that's going to piss people off, but the point is pretty damn clear. Incentives matter, delivery matters, execution matters. At the end of the day, if you plan to sell a video game with a season pass, and then you cock up the video game and you cock up the season pass, you know what? The market should punish you such that you may actually go under, because that's the entire goddamn point. Bad companies should die, because all they are doing is trading surviving off bad behavior, what I suppose economists might call like rent-seeking behavior, or the sort of thing where, if you've ever heard of the concept of an unpriced negative externality, that is the shit that they thrive on. That's what my spirit, my soul says. But I'm also a pragmatist, right? There is another incentive here. You know the way sometimes you design a system to incentivize a certain behavior, but you can accidentally have the opposite effect? Well, publishers may end up having a choice here. Do they release a broken DLC for money? Money, of course, that they've, probably already taken because it's a season pass. Will they just put that out to hit Valve's deadline to dodge Valve's, refunds and stuff, saying, okay, if we don't release this DLC, a massive amount of refunds will happen and we'll be in a lot of trouble? Or do we just shoot it out right now, accept that we're going to get shit reviews, but you know what? That's fine. Because they already bought the season pass, and if we put out some slop, it'll be slop, but at least it will comply with the letter of the law, if not the spirit of the law. I absolutely can't wait to see the ramifications of this. And next, I have another video for you, right? FromSoft. Sony want to purchase the company that owns 70% of FromSoft shares. It is a gargantuan story. It's actually one where the leaks have been confirmed, and I think it matters to all of us because this is the Elden Ring developer, the Armored Core developer. If something bad happens to them, it would truly be a loss. So check it out next. Thanks to today's sponsor, and I'll see you over there.